Here we go. I really enjoy this series, actually. Let me know if you enjoy this series. And we will start right away with the Gotham Scandinavia. Now, a very quick point. All the courses that I have free samples. So at least you can test them out and see for yourself. I have been really enjoying my time playing the Scandinavian defense. I have found that it is one of the easiest openings to play, even at my level, which is 2400 rapid, but even at 2700 blitz, like, I'm loving life. And this is the main line. My opponent has played the most popular move. One of the reasons I really love the Scandinavian is its forcing. It forces opponents to play into something that right away is on your terms, right? So the way my opponent has played this position is going to happen in about 90% of your games, and the opponent will develop the knight and also probably develop this pawn here. So I develop my knight. And yeah, bishop c4 is normal, but like at some point they have to play this move. Technically here, the most accurate move is to pin the knight, because white has not really committed this pawn, but I'm just going to show you what happens if you just play this opening the way it's kind of supposed to be played. My opponent has played the pawn to d3, which is just a touch more passive, right? And probably they're going to go bishop d2, which is very normal, or not. And when the pawn is on d4, really what I like to do is I like to move my bishop to the b4 square, and then I like to capture this knight. That is actually a little bit less powerful right now. That is the way my Scandinavian generally goes. The reason why this is not a particularly good move right now is because when the bishop comes there and ultimately lands on the c3 square when this trade happens, the white pawn is not here. And then that bishop on the c3 square will be a lot more powerful on that diagonal. Is it like the worst thing in the world? Not really, but generally the best way to play, if you're not going to play the Scandinavian with a bishop to b4, my opponent is just rattling off these moves, is to play c6, e6, and kind of play like this. And I'm just going to play this very standard, basic Scandinavian. There is no attack on my knight, but this is a very common move that people play in the Scandi. I'm just going to finish up my development, make sure I'm not blundering anything, and I'm rock solid, right? And if my queen was ever to be put in any danger, I would slide the queen back to c7, and I would be very happy. There's nothing wrong with this move. I was even thinking to play bishop g4. I think before we get into a big fight, before we do anything else, why don't we just finish up our development, right? We haven't gotten all the pieces out yet. Scandinavian is a little bit passive with the knight and bishop here, not traditionally standing on the most active squares. Also a little bit passive with these two pawns. They're not really on the 5th rank, but they are springboard pawns, right? They support other pawns to advance into the position and to potentially cause some problems. Now, I was thinking to play this move h6. A very common question in chess is like, is that sacrifice a thing? h6, and your opponent can sacrifice the bishop for 2 pawns. It does look a little bit dangerous, I have to say. It might be not the most pleasant thing in the world. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with this move b5. And I feel like at this level, this is a very standard, natural kind of follow-up, and now the bishop has to slide back. When we put the bishop there, I'm looking at 2 things. Number 1, I'm looking to chase it down with pawns and trap it. That's the first thing I'm looking for. The second thing that I'm looking for is to potentially just trade it off, right? And so I don't really want to trade it off. I feel like that's just relieving white of pressure. And not to mention the fact that then I'm just going to be attacked here. I think my queen has sort of served the purpose. So I could just slide back. Like, I could just go back to the c7 square here, or b6. Very tough to say, or d8. Right? But let's just go back to the c7 square, and we're preparing this advance. Now, I do have to speed up. Of course, I'm trying to be instructive. And that's why I'm obviously playing a bit slowly. When we move our queen to a square like this, we do have to think about, the whole time, we're going to be thinking about, what does our opponent want? Okay, clearly our opponent wants the bishop. One thing you have to realize here is you are protected, but there's a rook on the other side of the board, and you just gotta look. You gotta look on the other side. You gotta see, what does this rook see? So our options are get out of the way with the bishop, or potentially bring the bishop right back here. Me personally, I like the bishop on that square, and we're taking toward the center to make sure we're still protected here, and we have a rock-solid formation near our king. That was not a bad trade for white. It's a completely reasonable trade. And now we have to kind of figure out what's next, right? What is next in this position? Well, we've traded our light squared bishop, so just a rule of friendly piece of advice. After that, you should probably keep as many pawns on light squares as possible. Remember, this was our plan. It's not really the best plan, but I'm going to just justify it, because that's why I did that. And now we're trying to just hunt our opponent down with our queenside pawns. Probably for white, white should strike back. A3 is fine, but it's very passive. This is a pure strike back kind of a move. Our options are ignore, but that would lose a pawn. Push, which makes the knight move. Take, which I don't like because it splits our pawns, or just protect. If we push, we have to be certain that there's a follow-up, and then the knight's going to go to the middle. What's the follow-up? A lot of people would play here, though, but I think at this level, it is actually important to kind of learn these little, moments maybe pushing. I don't know. I feel like for this level, pushing is exactly what would happen. And now white is going to go here, and we're going to take, and then our bishops are going to stare at each other. My opponent's actually playing great. Like, this is, so far the position is quite equal. I will need to start having to put my foot on the gas a little bit. Otherwise, you know, this is not going to be, I'm going to leave myself with no time at the end. Now, again, here I am protected. It's a very balanced game. I can take, I can ignore, I can try to bring a rook to the center. It's a lot of possibilities. I do feel like people would be relieving themselves of the tension here a bit, but there is no, you know, exact reason to do that, so I'm going to put my rook in the center. And sometimes people ask, like, how do you know which rook should go to the center or not? Very tough question. The truth is, like, I wouldn't move that rook to that square because then I would be weakening my king a bit, but maybe that was the right decision, you know? Right now, a very curious idea by my opponent is bishop takes knight, which is generally not what you want to give away, but then to try to put the knight on g5. So for example, bishop takes, if I take back with the knight, put the knight on that square. Okay, bishop there is a fine move. My original idea here was just simply to slide my queen to the b6 square. E5 is okay, but it opens up that bishop. It might not be I mean, I could play e5, and then maybe I can take and I can go trade that bishop. Like, that is a possibility. You know what? Let's just show it. Let's just show it. Let's just show it. The reason why e5 is not the best move is, see, I'm opening up that bishop. But I do want to play moves. I don't want to constantly tell you, like, what the move I can imagine at that level would be and then not play it, right? Like, I need to strike this balance. So I'm going to play e5. I could have moved my queen to b6. Previously, I would have gone there, but I can't right now because of this knight. These knights are having a staring contest. Okay, I could take this with the bishop. I would not take it with the pawn because I would open my king, although it's not the end of the world. This safeguards the center, so it's definitely not a bad move. And my next move is going to be knight c5, unless my opponent plays bishop e3, in which case I can't play knight c5, and I would... okay, well, now I'm really considering knight c5. And if I take and split the pawns, that's going to be a problem for my opponent. I do have to keep this protected. Like a move like queen e3, for example, does attack my pawn. And so what I would probably do is take the bishop and go here, but it's a very back and forth game. It is... I mean, it is not clear at all who has an advantage here, you know? Queen e2, okay, similar concept going after this. Queen e3 was a little bit more active. I'm gonna take because that was always my plan, but it's actually not like a fantastic situation for me because even though I'm weakening my opponent's d3 pawn, rook c1 is putting a lot of pressure on my pawn as well. So this one's gonna go to the endgame. This one's gonna go to the endgame. I'm gonna have to take advantage of my opponent's damage structure, and I will just have to start playing a little bit faster. There's no ifs, ands, or... I can't speak. This move actually looks annoying, I have to say. Trying to put some pressure here on the pin. And, I might have really underestimated that move, actually. So now I can't take, I can't really move. If I get taken, I'm gonna have to make a trade, probably. Bishop takes... And then, yeah, like, I might just have to make a waiting move here. I'm not really sure what. I mean, maybe I can... Let me just... Yeah, I'm gonna make a waiting move. So if my opponent takes, I'm going to trade rooks, and one of the pieces is going to have to stop defending that pawn. I couldn't take with the rook, and I couldn't take with the pawn. And I couldn't move my queen out of the way, because then there would be this move. So, yeah, pretty crazy. My opponent, doing a nice job there. I mean, seriously, putting some very meaningful pressure on my position. Like, I'm getting a little bit concerned. Not a huge amount concerned, but enough concerned. Okay, bishop takes. I gotta take it. I don't really see, right? So now they're gonna take with the pawn. And I have, you know, what's funny? I don't know why they're thinking. What are they thinking about? They gotta take with the pawn. What's the thought here? Okay. I can take like this, by the way. Which, it's probably bad. I don't know why I would do that. But I can take both ways. So let's trade, remove one of the defenders of the center pawn, and we're gonna get our rook in the center, and... It's equal. I mean, what to say, you know? Opponent has played very, very well to this point, and it's gonna come down to a potentially crazy queen endgame. And my one advantage is that white's pawns are sort of stuck, and I can, like, get in there with a queen and try to win them. But you don't have to take. I mean, you don't have to take and activate my pieces for me. I'm expecting a move like queen d7, but queen d7 is very desperate. Like, a better move is queen d2, just waiting. Just not getting too hesitant. And then I'm gonna start kind of marching in. When you're this deep in the endgame, I just blundered a pawn. That's very bad. Yeah, queen d2 would have been a bit better. I guess my opponent did play quite well, but then panicked a little bit, and now is just losing because my king is very safe. Yeah, I expected queen d7, but the problem is I'm taking this, and the truth is I'm totally winning, actually, and I'm totally winning because I can give a check, and I just advance. And I'm always looking for a queen trade, but now my pawn's too strong. So once my pawn gets to guaranteed queening, it's over. What you can do here with white is you can try to go for perpetual check. You can try to catch me in a vortex. That's the best option. Play like queen c4, and, you know, I do have to be careful not to get perpetualed. I would probably get out of that by kind of like hiding my king. Okay. Yeah, but now I have queen c2. I'm looking for checks, queen c2, and I've completely secured my pawn's promotion now. And there is no check. And not only that, you can't even, I mean, I guess you can play queen g5. You can play queen g5. That's maybe what you can do to try to hope for perpetual. Very good. And now I'm looking for, do I have a check and can I push? I need to just make sure that's protected. I can give a check myself, but then the king hides. So my logic here was going to be just to play f6, which I mean, it must work, right? Like, I'm just blocking the checks. Like, I just, you know, and now I can even run my king. You know, that's the funny part, is like I can dance all the way over to the other side of the board, just making sure I don't get mated. But like if my opponent plays queen d4 and try, no, but queen d8, I just go right back, right? So as long as you don't get caught in the vortex, you're gonna survive. And because I have this very nice wall of pawns, my king is just gonna be able to dance around it constantly, and I can't get trapped in a circle. So Scandinavian is Scandinavian's a tough opening to crack with white. I mean, you saw my opponent there; they got a little bit of pressure, but okay, let me just double check that I'm not doing anything stupid. b2, check, king here, or yeah, I mean, it looks like that's it. I mean, that's one. If I get that second queen, it's game over. And white put a little bit of pressure, but yeah, that's not gonna cut it, unfortunately. And now we can even pre-move. We'll pre-move all these moves because I am pretty certain there is no way through. I don't think so. I'm pre-moving all the moves. There's no way to trick me because you might check me, but that's not, yeah. I want to check, actually. I mean, listen, my opponent played very well that game. I'm gonna have to raise my level today if I want to have smoother games. So that's a check. And now you look for mate. You look for mate, and I think we're gonna get a mate. We're gonna get a mate right there. It's mate. Queen takes pawn. Of course, you can just do ladder. By far the easiest thing to do with two queens is to just do a ladder mate. I don't know why my opponent is thinking right now. There we go.